Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
Doing all right. We're recording. I'm in the mountains here in the cabin, and I am standing recording so I can be in the best possible internet signal as I can find here.
Yeah, and don't move even an inch. Just stay perfectly still. I know you tend to wander while you talk. I wander while I talk as well. I'm a big pacer whenever I'm on the phone. Thankfully, for podcast setups, I have a little spinny chair that I can kind of rock back and forth. You can't move, though. You are locked into place.
Listeners, I'm usually not standing up when we record. Usually I'm sitting down, so we'll see how this works out. Can I last? Can I last the whole podcast? Especially because we might drone on forever and ever about nothing like now.
Yes,
and
but
the other thing I've learned in our restarts, Tommy's standards are much higher than mine.
I don't have high standards. I just know that if we get about a minute in and I make a mistake, it's faster just to restart than it is for me to go back and cut it and fiddle with all the edits and stuff like that. But anyway, we are here, evening of Thursday, April 18th. Happy birthday, Alex, my brother. His birthday, 42? 42. Big 4-2, which is, he's old. What can we say? Anyway.
Yeah, thanks. I feel great now.
I'm just saying. But anyway, just some light ribbing. We are here 1 week away from the draft, Dad. We are, exactly 7 days away. It feels like the past 4 weeks have gone by slowly and quickly at the same time. I feel like I've been watching my clock for the draft, and at the same time, it's only a week away. How are you feeling for that?
Good. If you do 3 or 4 mock drafts a day and you stop and look up, stats and video and athletic testing for each one of the players you're thinking about, the days go by a little more quickly.
Do they, though? Because in my opinion, it's all right, this is the 5th draft in a row that I've drafted Graham Barton at 25. I've drafted Edgerrin Cooper at 41. I've drafted Taylor Demison at 58.
All you have to do is play with the
Cooney at.
You just have to play with the sliders a little bit and get some really wacky drafts. I cranked the randomness up to full blast on one draft, and boy, that was sweet.
That was some really heinous work by you because, listeners, he cranked the random factor on the PFF mock draft machine, which is an excellent tool. Recommend everyone to use it as we're now a week away. You can mess with some mock drafts. But he cranked the randomness all the way up, and you ended up with Rome Odunze at 25 somehow. What was the other ones you had? You don't need to look it up now if you don't remember off the top of your head.
I can't remember, but I got Odunze at 25. I probably got Amarius Mims at 41, and
you ended up with 4 first rounders. So I was like, all right, cool exercise, I guess. Fun stuff. I'm not posting this on Mock Draft Monday, but cool. But anyway, maybe if one of these years, April 1st happens on a Monday, that can be our Mock Draft Monday for the year, or for that year essentially. But anyway, so today, a week away. We figured our last fully pre-draft podcast, our next one is going to be after the first round probably, and then we'll probably have one right back after that, kind of pseudo back-to-back on that, doing one for the entire Packers draft. And don't worry, we'll be doing an episode for probably each prospect or maybe every 2 prospects, doing real deep dives into them for the rest of the offseason. We're going to be doing an episode every single week for the rest of the offseason, even after the draft, so come check us out. So follow us on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We'll be tweeting out when we have those new episodes, so just keep an eye out for that. We'll also be tweeting out any data we find, any numbers we find for the prospects after the Packers pick them. Pretty much doing a little deep dive breakdown in the podcast on each player, and then some tidbits on our Twitter. Once again, that's at FatherSonPacker if you want to check that out. And then subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We even put all episodes out on YouTube as well if you want to check us out there. So we're going to be doing one last pre-draft podcast. Today we're going to be giving our hottest takes and reacting. We actually each are bringing 5 hot takes to the table. We haven't told the other person them, but we're going to be telling them essentially if it's a lame take, that's not hot at all. If there's no way in hell that would ever happen, or if it was a medium reasonable take, we'll be giving them a little, scaling grade essentially. Before we get into any of that though, we did have a couple bits of Packers-related news to touch on. The first was today, the Packers signed offensive tackle Andre Dillard. He was previously of the Titans. Back a few years ago, he was drafted in the first round by the Eagles. I'm having trouble remembering which year now. But he's a first-round draft pick by the Eagles, and then he went to the Titans last year. And then
his RAS card says 2019.
2019, okay. And then he was released by the Titans this offseason, picked up by the Packers. This is a depth signing. I would be surprised if it wasn't on the minimum. Per Warren Sharp, Dillard ranked 38th out of 38, so dead last, amongst qualifying offensive tackles in both pressure rate allowed and sacks allowed last year for the Titans, on an offensive line that was like 30th overall in most metrics also. So he was pretty much the worst starter on a bad offensive line. And, some people are like, hey, Packers have had some moderate success doing some reclamation stuff on the offensive line. But at the same time, to me, it's like the Eagles' offensive line is also well known, and the Eagles' offensive coaching staff is well known for developing offensive line pieces. And the fact that they weren't really able to get the most out of them isn't exactly encouraging. To me, it's a depth signing. You hope he doesn't have to play. I wonder if they're going to try him at guard as well. He has like a handful of snaps at guard in his career. We'll see. So that was the signing, Dan. Yeah. What did you think about Andre Dillard with the Packers?
Well, he's an elite athlete. He's the kind of guy, he's a Packers guy in a lot of ways. He's a little bit shorter than typical. 6'5", kind of fits a lot of their metrics. He's got a 4.4 short shuttle. It's like 90 percentile in the speed and great explosion. So I think they're just taking a flyer on an athletic guy, see if he can turn it around, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's...
I haven't heard anything about the contract details either, have you?
Yeah, I mean, we've only just today they announced that they were signing him. I haven't seen anything on contract details. I'd be surprised if it was very much. If he was going to get paid much, it probably would have been a lot earlier. He was one of the worst pass-protecting tackles in the league last year. I wonder if... right now, he's probably slotted in as their swing tackle, but I don't think you feel great about that. I think you feel okay about him. He's like the tackle Royce Newman. I feel like on this team is his ideal spot. Where it's like break glass in case of emergency.
I also feel like
because he was pretty bad last year, to be fair.
Is he even guaranteed a spot on the 53? I would think not, based on being worst is not a good adjective.
No, it is not. And it's like it's probably going to come down to he'll probably be one of the last. I mean, assuming, and I guess we'll talk about this with some of our hot takes, but assuming the Packers make some investments along the offensive line in this draft, like we expect them to. He's probably fighting for the last or second to last spot, wouldn't you say, along that offensive line?
I mean, they need to add at least 3 based on they lost 3. And I think they're probably going to want to replace Royce Newman too. So that's 4 new offensive linemen they need to add.
Yeah, but
now if they draft 4.
Yeah, but then... my argument, I guess my counter argument would be was Dillard last year any better than Newman has been in his career? Like, I
maybe if they feel like they need more depth I don't know. Do they need more depth at tackle? Or do they need more depth on the inside?
I guess we'll see. But no, I would agree with you that he's not guaranteed a spot on the 53 at all. And if it comes down to him or Caleb Jones, I wonder which way they would go. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I'm curious. If they've had a couple years now developing Caleb Jones, we'll see how he looks. I'm very curious to see how he looks this preseason. Training camp and preseason.
Packers sign Andre Dillard. I'm curious where they deploy him initially. If they're thinking like, hey, we're going to start him at guard and see what happens, because tackle has not been great for him. But beyond that, we do have some more Packers news. The Packers had their first set of off-season workouts. They had players in the building, kind of I think mostly just look like hanging back out, catching up, probably getting your iPad, getting your playbook, talking to the new defensive staff. First day of school.
How much time do they spend playing video games instead of practicing?
Getting the syllabus,
just hanging out.
Bringing the syllabus home, looking at it, making sure you know everything. But the most notable thing is Jair Alexander was present after not being present last year. And last year he foregoed a $700,000 roster bonus. So it's good to see. I think Jordan Love was there. Most of the receivers were there. Most of the defensive players were there. Keyshawn Nixon was there. Xavier McKinney was there. Josh Jacobs was there. A lot of the vets were there. It seemed like most of the team was there, which is always good to see for a young team that's trying to, build chemistry and build on the success they had the back half of last year. And then the last little bit of news is we have a few more top 30 visit players. We're going off of Packers Wire's top 30 visit tracker. Zach Cruz does a great job over there keeping track of those. The new ones are Giovanni Manu, offensive tackle from British Columbia. So that's interesting. Donovan Jennings, offensive lineman from University of South Florida. Edge Marshawn Nealand from Western Michigan. He's a player who's probably going to go, top of the second round, maybe even slip into the first round. So he's one to keep an eye on, especially. Linebacker Trevin Wallace from Kentucky. Super great athlete. Kind of a day 3 guy, but his athleticism might bump him into day 2. It only takes one team to like these guys. Quarterback Garvin Hardison from UTEP. safety Del Pettis from Troy. And those are the 6 new ones we know. That puts the Packers at 24 out of 30 so far this week. So 6 to go until the draft. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, and then, one other was Mason Smith, defensive tackle out of LSU. We mentioned him briefly on the last pod, but it was like not official yet, but he is one of their top 30 visits.
Oh, right. That's the one that came out almost while we were recording.
Like
right?
As we were about to record, and it was like someone screenshotting his Instagram like with a picture of Lambeau Field. So like wasn't official at all. But any thoughts on any of those, Dad, or should we get into our hot takes?
Well, I feel like maybe like Giovanni Manu is going to be the next version of Josh Nijman or Caleb Jones, where I think he had some decent testing, some kind of pro day or something in British Columbia that maybe is worth holding on to and see if he can become a good player. Nealon is a guy I think a lot of teams are going to be interested in, but he fits the Packers measurables as an edge rusher very well. One of the best kind of fits in the draft. And then Wallace is a guy who's kind of Trevin Wallace, the linebacker from Kentucky. He's kind of all over the map. Where he's ranked is like 7th rounder or 3rd rounder, depending on which list you use.
And if you listen to like podcasters like Daniel Jeremiah or people who are like in the know with some of these front offices, apparently it's the same way in the league where some people you'll talk to will be like, hey, 3rd rounder. It's like other people will be like, this guy, probably an UDFA, probably a 7th, 6th rounder. And it only takes one team who really likes a guy to take him that high, as we've seen.
Right. Only one team can actually draft him.
Exactly. And if they have a high grade on him, if 2 teams have a high grade on him, they're going to be competing for taking him at that higher spot. So, but anyway, Dad, I think that does it for the news. Should we get into our, bid to become the next Stephen A. Smith, next Max Kellerman, next?
Are you gonna start? Yelling?
Let's start giving the hot takes. Let the hot takes flow. This is what the people want. The people want not vitriol, but the people want. What is the thing that people embrace debate?
Ski up.
It's ski up. The embrace debate talk shows where it's like okay, we're just gonna yell at each other and say a take that we don't believe in just for the sake of argument. But anyway, we're here. We're hot take artists. We're just making our pitch to the 4-letter network. If you hear this and you love our hot takes, we're for hire. If you want to come throw a bag at us, why not?
What I gonna say? 4-letter network? Are we? That sounds like something else.
But anyway, hot take central. Here we come. Just want to say, we can't be held accountable for any of these takes. We may or may not believe some of them. We're not going to tell you which. But it's mostly just, something fun before the draft. So each of us is going to give a hot take, quote unquote. And the person who is receiving that hot take is going to say whether it's like that's boring. That doesn't even count as a hot take. Oh, that's reasonable. That could happen. Or you are out of your mind. Those are our 3 options. Dad, do you want to start off with your first hot take?
Okay, so this one's a little weird. I don't know how hot takey it is, but what I picked is like that the Packers will pick at least 3 players from non-Power 5 schools in this draft, as non-Power 5 as of 2023. So that includes schools like BYU and SMU, who will be joining Power 5 conferences next year. And the reason I just gave a little background of why so in my last 30 mock drafts, which is only over the last 2 weeks, I have taken
that is unhinged. I'm just going to tell you right now that is so 2.
Yeah, I did.
Actually, 2 a day feels kind of low for you now that I'm thinking.
Yeah,
about it.
So I guess I don't want to save it, but this So I pulled up. I saved downloaded the screenshots of them, and so I pulled those up and looked at them. So I was getting on average 3.2 players from non-Power 5 conferences per draft, and the range is from anywhere from 1 to 6, and with the most common, so the mode value being 3, modal value. And I could tell you, like some of that's driven by some players I got a lot, Mason McCormick, offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman from South Dakota State. I got him like in 19 of those drafts. Jalen Sundell, offensive tackle / center from North Dakota State. Got him 17 times. Nealon, I got 13 times. A kind of recent addition to my mock draft crushes, Blake Watson, a running back from Memphis, I got 8 times. Trey Taylor, safety from Air Force, I got 7 times. So, and then, I think overall, I get like 16 different players.
Okay,
from small college.
So your take is 3, right?
Three or more, yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to think about the hotness level of this take. Whether or not it's like a jalapeno, is this a ghost pepper? I would say this is a reasonable. So the Packers have 11 picks, right? I was just thinking about it last year, so I was just looking. So last year they had 13, and they took 4. It was Tucker Kraft out of South Dakota State, Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green, Lou Nichols out of Central Michigan, I think. It was Central Michigan. And then Grant DeBose out of Charlotte. So they had 4 out of 13. So
I should have gone higher.
I was going to say.
So I need to get hotter. I need to drive up I need to drive up the Scoville units on this thing. I'm going. Okay.
I'm going to say no. You already gave the take. You could have gone hotter. You could have, but you can't back out now.
I went somewhere where you could go on either side of it.
So was your take 3 or more, or over 3?
I was originally going to do at least 3, so that'd be 3 or more.
At least 3, I'm going to say yes. That is a given. Not a given, but I think that is a very reasonable number. Just because, the players that you've listed, a lot of the players that I've gotten when I've been doing these mock drafts, I don't know. Did you mention Rasheen Ali out of Marshall?
So I could give the whole list, because just for the listeners to hear. So addition to Amageji, the offensive
out of Yale, offensive tackle
from Yale. Isaiah Davis, running back from one of the Dakotas. One of the Dakotas is going to hate me.
Yep,
if I get it wrong.
Just don't commit. Don't commit.
Rasheen Ali, the running back from Marshall. Kingsley Suamataia, the BYU, tackle from BYU.
Sneaky first round potential.
He could be a first rounder, right? I actually almost put in the Packers will take a small school player as their first pick in the draft. Not necessarily first rounder, but first pick of the draft. That would have been hot.
The only non-Power 5 first rounder they've taken is Jordan Love. Did you know that? It's the only one. Every other single one has been a big school.
Right.
You got. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but so this would have been more of like if they trade back and they take somebody early second, you can see them getting like Suamataia or Nealand, and some of the other players. Offensive tackle from Eastern Kentucky, Josiah Ezerim, Mohamed Kamara,
Colorado State.
From Colorado State, Miles Harden. A corner from South Dakota, not South Dakota State, Miles Harden. Tyrese Knight, a linebacker from Texas El Paso. Jalix Hunt, an edge rusher from Houston Baptist. And Christian Boyd, an offensive lineman from Northern Iowa.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I think 3 is very doable. I'm going to say that is a lukewarm take. I'm going to give you lukewarm on that one. It's a solid take, but I don't think it's blowing anyone out of the water. Are you ready for my first take?
Okay, yeah. Am I going to need like a glass of water or some like milk or something to get this hot take down?
I don't know. Okay, so my take, this one, so we came into this, we're going to have some Packer-specific ones and then a couple, draft generic ones. This is one of my Packer-specific ones. If the Packers want a day 1 starting offensive lineman, they must trade up in the first round. And so my reasoning for this is if you look at the current consensus mock draft board or on NFL mock draft database, they have 6 offensive linemen going before Green Bay's pick at 25. And then Dane Brugler for The Athletic, his latest mock had 8 offensive linemen going before Green Bay's pick at 25. So yeah,
this is not tackle. This is any offensive lineman. If they want
a starting offensive lineman, they must trade up from 25.
This is pretty hot, I think.
You think that's hot? You think at 25 they'll be able to get someone okay?
I think it's a
start day 1.
Yeah, because like Graham Barton might or might not. Jackson Powers Johnson might or might not. Suamataia, he's thought to need some
I don't know if
development.
You would feel great about him starting like week 1, day 1.
So this is week 1 to day 1, not necessarily season 1.
Yeah, day 1 starter, week 1. He will be starting on the offensive line. The Packers must trade up if they want someone to start day 1.
Jordan Morgan.
I don't love Jordan Morgan. He's not a guy.
And I think there's a chance you get an interior offensive lineman later, like BB or Mahogany or McCormick.
Okay,
I think
feel comfortable starting them day 1.
They might. I don't think they know now. So if they want to be, so that's the thing.
If they want to be sure of
if
having
they want to be sure of having
starter, do they have to trade up?
Yes, that's a little different than saying if you want one, you have to trade up. You might get one, but not be sure until after you've got him in the building.
That's fair. So how hot would you grade this take?
This is pretty. It's not ghost pepper hot, but it's a little spicy.
Okay, so you think that at 25 they should feel fine, sitting and picking, even if it's like, hey, we want to be picking an offensive lineman to start for us week 1, day 1. Like, we feel okay just staying at 25 for that.
I think so. I think I need to respond with a different one for my next one instead of what I was going to do.
Okay, I guess you had an offensive line one too, but yeah, I would say that's a medium spicy one. Just to give my thoughts on it, I think if they want a day 1 starting tackle, they definitely need to trade up. Like you said, but if they're gonna keep Zach Tom at tackle, and that was something that is Zach Tom going to move to center? Was a report out there that
is that real or is that poker?
I think that might be poker, actually. But like, if Zach Tom moves to center and they're trying to draft a day 1 starting right tackle, I think they might need to trade up. Right. But if they're keeping Tom at tackle and they feel comfortable with Rasheed Walker at tackle, then I think you're okay. You're okay staying at 25. Yes. But I think if they want a day 1 starting tackle, they do need to trade up. Because I don't.
So you think this is just them publicly raising a flag? Hey, we're looking at a right tackle in the first round.
I don't even.
Everybody, look at going to the right tackle in the first round.
Misinformation is good no matter what. As long as they think you're doing like one of like 8 things as opposed to one of 2 things, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so my thoughts, like, Amarius Mims isn't going to be there. I don't think Graham Barton's not going to be there.
Guyton might be. He seems to be going lower in more recent drafts. He's a little his tape isn't as good,
and I think he's almost certainly not a day 1 starter. I think he would need some development before he's ready. I just don't think he's strong enough.
This is true. He may not be a day 1 starter. He needs some work. Yeah. But the one thing I like about him better than Mims is he actually did his agilities, and Mims is like, nah, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I mean, when you're that big, that's strong. I guess that's true. But anyway, so that was my first take. Dad, what was your next take? What was your next hot take?
So I guess to put this small one out there, because in response, and this is not a Packers specific one, this is for the whole league, that Jackson Powers Johnson falls out of the first round.
Out of the first round. So I've been
hearing more and more podcasts that maybe the teams aren't as high as the media.
So a couple things that I have seen. After the Senior Bowl, it was like, shoot, he might go top 15.
Yeah.
He's like, he might go top 10.
He was the best offensive lineman there.
Yeah, and then you hear a couple things about, like, hey, got some injury concerns. He didn't finish at the Senior Bowl. And so you're wondering, like, hey, is that going to, keep them down a little bit on him? He didn't test at the Combine, if I remember correctly. He waited for his pro day. And then you see, like, I saw, I can't remember who it was. I wish I could give them credit. But someone went in and charted, like snapping ability, essentially, like on targetness of their snaps. And they, charted Jackson Powers Johnson as being, a slightly, like, not a good snapper, essentially, like a bad snapper of the football. And so the question is he a guard only at that point? What value is there if he's just a guard at the next level, even if he's a good guard?
So do they compare him to, like, I haven't heard that about Jackson Powers Johnson. I've heard about Bortolini. Is he on Bortolini level?
Yeah, they said him and Bortolini were like the same tier. And so I still think this is a medium hot take. I think some team is going to fall in love with the athleticism and just like the nasty factor of him. And especially with the fact that we're going to see a lot of offensive linemen go from pick 1 to 20. I think like 8 to 9, maybe. Some team like 20 to 32 is going to be like, hey, he's our next offensive lineman on the board. We know he's the 11th offensive lineman or 12th offensive lineman on our board, but there's a gap between him and the next guy, and we're going to take him here. So I still think there's a 50-50 chance he goes in the first round, but it's not like after the Senior Bowl, it was like, oh, this guy's like a lock top 20
top
pick.
15. I was thinking he was going to be about 50. He's like, after the Senior Bowl happens, like, oh, he's out of reach already.
Yeah. I mean, if the Packers picked him, I'd be happy. I know Nate Tice of The Athletic thinks he's a little rawer than like some people think. He thinks like he's going to need some more development at the next level. Like he's like, yeah, he's a bull in a china shop and he's super strong, but some of the technique stuff, like the punch timing and stuff, isn't ideal. And I trust his opinion more than I trust my own. But yeah, so I would say medium take. I definitely could see him falling into the second round. If the Packers take him at 41, that is a home runs grand slam A+ pick for me, at least. But yeah, so I'd say medium pick. I think that medium hot take. That's a nice hot take. It's nothing. It's not so hot that I'm going to get like
it's just ridiculous and like why even bother?
Yeah, it's not going to give me stomach aches. It's not going to make me upset later when I'm running to the bathroom. But it's a medium hot take. A medium hot take. Anything else you wanted to add on Jackson Powers Johnson in that take, or do you want me to hear my next one?
No, that's kind of all I had for that one. So why don't you go ahead with your next one?
So my next take is another Packers-specific one. If the Packers take a wide receiver or tight end in this draft, it will be a wasted pick. That is my next hot take.
Wasted pick.
That's why it's a hot take for a reason. We got to use strong, absolute language. It is a wasted pick. I have to say it even more forcefully. You're right. I said it a little too, calmly. It will be a wasted pick if the Packers take a wide receiver or a tight end in this draft.
I feel the same way.
You do? Okay. So
absolutely. I mean, I see people like mocking a wide receiver to the Packers in like the second round. I was like, why? I think the only way I'd see them, the value in taking a wide receiver is if one of like the top 4 fall to them. Or one of the top 3, really.
So you're saying if Brian Thomas Jr. falls to them, that's a fine pick, but besides that, just don't even think about it?
My line. So you may have heard people talk about the, I think it's Ross Uglum, but they have the Bo Melton line. That you have to, any receiver you draft has to be better than him to be worth it. Don't bother.
You and me are on the same page here. That line is higher than that.
My line is like Romeo Doubs or Jaden Reed before even bothering.
Before even bothering, exactly. I agree. I think they need to immediately be the second or first best receiver on the team to make it like it's. On the other hand, are you really wasting like a 6th or 5th round pick? Like if it's the best player available and you're adding depth and. Is it
the
really
marginal improvement is so small to add a receiver who at his ceiling is going to be number 6 on your depth chart versus adding a flyer at like safety, linebacker, or corner.
Yeah, a flyer at wide receiver has what, a 20% chance of even making the team,
right?
Like might not even.
And then if they do, they're going to get 10% snap share.
Yeah,
maybe
and a first or second round pick, or let's say they take a receiver in the second round, they're probably behind Watson, probably behind Reed. What we saw from Wicks last year, he was worthy of a second round pick. It looked like, so probably behind Wicks. Doubs, we saw take over a playoff game and then be their most reliable target in San Francisco. So, do you really want to move him down the depth chart? So, okay, so you're saying this is not a hot take at all.
No, I'm saying it's like. If it's a Dunze or Neighbors or...
Okay, buddy, we can just skip that. That's not happening. So unless the Packers, massive trade up, you never know. But they're not going to... The thing is, folks, a little inside baseball, a little inside football. They're not trading their first-round pick next year because the draft is in Green Bay, and there's no way they're not making a first-round pick with the draft being in Green Bay for the first time ever. They're not trading
anything, they'll be looking to add picks for next year for the draft in Green Bay.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so glad to hear I'm not totally off my rocker, that one's not too hot. Dad, what you got next for me?
So my next one is that the Packers will draft a quarterback before they draft a running back this year.
A quarterback before a running back. Okay. Walk me through it.
I don't actually like this take. I'm not in favor of this, except for the late running back. And so I had to say a list of possible 3rd to 5th round quarterbacks by the consensus board. Spencer Rattler, he's got, I guess, 78 on average with a range of 64 to 113. Michael Pratt from Tulane, his range of rankings is 78 to 150. Jordan Travis from Florida State, 131 to 173.
I just want to say
so something. I've got 6.
Let me just say that. Am I the only person that thinks Sean Clifford is decent? Am I the only person on the planet that thinks that? Okay, there's a small subset of Packers Twitter that we're not going to acknowledge one time, besides right now, that thinks that Sean Clifford should be the starter. Those people are weirdos. Those people are weirdos. I am not associated with them, but I think Sean Clifford is solid. Like we watched him in the preseason. He was pretty good. He was
much better than I expected.
Good.
I was.
Go ahead.
I was unhappy about the pick at the time. I thought it was a reach, but he was a fine as backup, and so now I'm like, they don't need another backup. I'm only putting this out there in the ether because Gutekunst seems to want to go back to a philosophy is we're just going to churn quarterbacks every other year and then try to trade them away.
Here's the take that I have that like why Sean Clifford is not a good backup is if your goal for a backup is to pick them up, develop them, and trade them for capital, if the whole league and the whole media and draft sphere has a preconceived this player is not any good, it doesn't matter how good they look in the preseason. It doesn't matter how good they look in spot starts. It doesn't matter how good they look. If there's a preconceived notion that the player is not good, you're never going to get much in a draft, in a trade for them. Like they're not. Do you need
a Matt Flynn scenario? Matt Flynn, to have
the thing is
seven touchdowns in a game.
Yeah, exactly. And people like Matt Flynn a little bit coming out of college, more than they like Clifford. Apparently, people had non-draftable grades on Sean Clifford coming out of college.
Oh, well, right. So apparently, Sean Clifford is not the guy they're molding for trade value. It's going to be somebody else they pick up.
But they're not going to carry 3 quarterbacks like that. So I guess the counter argument to me, because to me, as a backup quarterback, I think Sean Clifford is good. I think he's shown enough in the preseason, his ability to make plays with his legs, ability to throw on the run. I think he's shown enough that I feel like could be a good backup quarterback in this league for a good while. But if the goal is to develop,
sensing you hate this take with a burning passion.
Let me just. If the goal is to develop and trade, you're not going to get anything for a guy that no one else thinks is good or no one else had on their draft board. Apparently, even if it doesn't matter what he shows, it doesn't matter because they'll all just fall back to their draft grade and be like, "Hey, we haven't seen this guy start an NFL game." And we had this grade on him coming out of the draft. So why would we, invest capital into that? Even if you tell us hey, he's developed really well behind the scenes. And even if he's looked good in preseason games. So if the goal is to draft a guy and trade him, I guess I see that. But to me, it's Sean Clifford is a fine backup for a backup. So I don't know. It's a long-winded way of saying
I don't
it.
actually want to
long-winded there.
I don't actually want to defend this take. It is merely a hot take I'm throwing out there. This is one of those.
Just to circle back to your actual take, which was a quarterback before a running back. I think there's no way this is happening. I think this is a super hot take. I would be very surprised because we saw Gutekunst.
Well, let me tell you some of the running backs I'm talking about.
Can I just say we saw Gutekunst talk about at the owners meeting that he thinks, or I don't know, actually it might have been the closing presser. It was one of his press conferences after the season. And he talked about how he saw backfields as having, he wanted a Thunder and a Lightning guy. Look around, there's no Lightning guy on the roster right now. They got Josh Jacobs and A.J. Dillon. They got 2 Thunders. They have no speed in the backfield right now. And I think to get a true speed guy who's going to be ready to play in the NFL already, you're going to need to take him before the 5th round. And I would be shocked if they took a quarterback before the 5th round.
Right. So this is the thing. In order for this so let me some of the running backs who go after some of these quarterbacks, Braylon Allen, Isaac Guerrero, he's 126, Braylon Allen 98, Tyrone Tracy, consensus 178.
Quarterbacks were these again?
Spencer Rattler, Michael Pratt, Jordan Travis. And so some of these, if they go at the earliest range, because some of them have a range of rankings from 127 to 330 or 113 to 320. So if they go at the top end of the range and running backs go later, like Tyrone Tracy, he looks good. Rasheen Ali for Marshall, Isaiah Davis from South Dakota State, Blake Watson from Memphis. So he's actually moved up. His currently consensus is 285, but just in the last week, I think he moved up on PFF's board from about 200 to 114. So he's rising on boards. But there are some running backs, I think, who could provide what the Packers are missing that they could get in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round.
Yeah, but I just don't know if any of those are ready to contribute right away or that you'd be banking on. Because it seems like they're going to want a change of pace. Josh Jacobs is going to be the main guy, but they're going to want to change a pace back who can handle, 10-ish carries a game right off the bat. And I just don't think, they're going to want to have Thunder back there based on Brian Gutekunst's comments in the offseason. I don't know. That's just the way that I'm seeing it. So I think this is a very hot take. And good job. Good job hitting on a very hot take.
I'm hitting high on this, on the Hot Ones Scoville
Yeah, you did.
meter.
You didn't check up on the swing at all. You really swang through it on this one.
This was more like one of those drives where you like run into it, Happy Gilmore style.
Yes, you really you had a full dead sprint before you wound up. My next take: the Packers need to take a linebacker in the top 50 if they want a better defense this season.
So this does not include pick 58.
Or it could include trading up from pick 58.
I have wanted one of 3 linebackers as the Packers' first of 2 linebackers I want them to draft. Edgerrin Cooper, Peyton Wilson, or Junior Colson.
Okay. And all of those guys are top 60, top 70-ish players, right?
I think Colson is usually around after that. He almost always makes it to 58. Cooper sometimes, so he's kind of all over the map. Sometimes he's like first round, and sometimes he's end of the second. And Wilson, I think it's just going to depend on what people think of his medicals. But those are the top.
Only takes one team to be comfortable with the medicals. That's the thing.
So I actually, most of the time, even though PFF gives me a bad grade for it, take Edgerrin Cooper at 41.
I think I could see the Packers doing it. I wouldn't love it unless their plan is to play him at will, because we've heard like their plans to play Quay Walker at will. I don't know where Edgerrin Cooper would play then at 230 pounds. So
right, and Colson, by reports, seems to be a little bit more of a Mike in style.
One of the bigger guys in this class. He didn't test at all athletically though, so who even knows?
That makes it right. They may be leery of picking him since they don't have any testing numbers for him. And then, so I usually, sometimes I pick 2 of those 3. I go bonkers on that linebacker. Like, you know what? Let's just get 2 of the top 3 guys to make sure we get one that's good.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's why I said top 50, because I think in a class that's kind of diluted at linebacker talent, could this be a scenario where, guys get pushed up the board because like, hey, we only have 3 guys with this level of grade to them. Let's just take this guy now. And so despite the fact that, Colson is usually around there at 58, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's gone by the time the Packers are taking that 3rd selection.
Yeah, he might be that.
So what do you grade the stake? What do you think? Packers must. So 2 things. Packers must take well, I guess it's one thing. Packers must take a linebacker before 50 to have a solid defense next year.
To have a solid defense next year. Not just to get a good linebacker.
You got to listen.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking about the linebacker, not the whole defense.
The Packers need to take a linebacker in the top 50 if they want a better defense this season.
I think that's pretty spicy, actually.
Okay, you don't think they need to?
I don't think they have to have a good defense next year.
Okay, I'm a little worried by there's no depth there at all right now, because right now, season started today. It's Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, and Eric Wilson. And
so one thing I would say in counter to that, how bad NFL teams are in deciding which off-ball linebacker to take in the draft.
You're just banking on the other teams being very stupid and just taking the wrong guy.
There's so many Pro Bowlers who are taken late in like 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds instead of one of the first 2. The hit rate is actually pretty bad on the early linebackers taken. So I think they could take somebody in 3rd or 4.
The hit rate is bad, but the development curve for linebackers is slow. So if you want an immediate starter, I don't know if you can bank on a late round guy, even if he's a guy that shows promise in his first year. I don't know if you can bank on immediate contributions from him. I don't know.
Yeah, you might not get that anyway from the earliest linebacker you can get.
So I guess you could also say, hey, drafting a guy in the top 50 wouldn't matter anyway. But that was just my hot take.
Yeah, but there's a decent chance, actually, that the best linebacker in the end is somebody picked later.
Okay. I think, actually, we only have time for about 1 take more. So pick your favorite take of the ones you have left and hit me with it. 1 take more each.
Already?
Well,
one take more each.
A little long. 1 take more each. Let's see it.
All right, let's see. Cole Bishop will be the first true safety picked in the draft.
Okay, so essentially first non-Cooper DeJean safety taken in the draft is what you're saying.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
So Cole Bishop, safety out of Utah, for those of you who don't know, super duper ridiculously athletic. He's a guy who's been rising up boards, apparently. I saw a report, and this time of year it is lying season, but I think it was, I don't want to misquote, but I thought it was Daniel Jeremiah, but could have been someone else. It could have been Matt Miller also. But they were saying Cole Bishop is going in the second round. He is going in the second round, and that is like going to happen, and teams have him high on their boards. And so at that point, it's just how high in the second round does he go? Because I don't think we're going to see a safety besides DeJean taken in the first round, and DeJean might be a corner. He's just a defensive back. He could be any of the three. It just depends what the team that drafts him needs. So the question is he taking over Newman? Is he taking over Jaden Hicks? And is he taking over
Bullard?
Kalen Bullock? Oh, Javon Bullard would be the other one. Yeah. So Javon Bullard.
Those are the ones I'd say are going to be second rounders.
Yeah, Javon Bullard, Jaden Smith. I just said his name. Help me out.
Bullard.
The guy from it.
Newman. Yeah, and then another guy who might sneak in, but maybe isn't that as high as Dadrian
Taylor Demerson. He could be a second rounder too, I think. I would say so. The take was that he was going to be the first non-DeJean safety taken, essentially.
Right. Since DeJean isn't necessarily a safety.
I give him a 1 in 4 chance, which to me not that spicy. I would say he's just as likely as these other guys.
Oh, he's just as likely as the other guys to be the first one.
I think so.
Off the board.
I think it sounds like from what I've been reading is like the questions coming out for him were like, how athletic is he really? Absolutely annihilated all athletic testing. How good is he in man coverage? Well, during the All-Star events, he apparently did well in, man-to-man drills. And then, I think they were saying that he crushed like, individual workouts and like interviews and stuff like that. So I think he's just as likely as the other guys. So I would say, this is just a medium take, medium high.
I've heard some people feel like he is really going to be good as a box safety. And that's why I've heard a number of Packers podcasters like him as a potential second safety for Green Bay.
Yeah, no, I'd be super happy with Cole Bishop.
I've been picking him a lot the last 2 weeks as a third round safety. Maybe he won't last that long.
At 41, I would be like, oh, that's interesting, but I wouldn't be like, what the hell are we doing?
41 would be spicy. 41 I think would be pretty spicy.
But would you be like, what the hell? Like, what are we doing here? I wouldn't be. I would be like, okay, super athletic safety who, played at a pretty big school at Utah, played good competition, super athletic. Like, I wouldn't hate it.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So next hot take. This one might be my hottest take. There will not be more than five or fewer defensive players taken before pick 25.
Not so. Let's see. We've got possibilities are Verse. Well, Quinion Mitchell for sure.
We always say for sure, and then you never know.
I think he's going to go like number 10. I don't even know if the Packers could trade up to get him.
I'm just saying, you never know.
All right, I gotta pull up that big board again.
Well, so if you look at the consensus, big board, there are currently, if you're just going from top to bottom, how many are in the top 25? There's Dallas Turner, that's 1. Terry and Arnold 2.
Right.
Quinion Mitchell 3. Jared Verse 4. Laiatu Latu 5. Byron Murphy 6. Cooper DeJean 7. Nate Wiggins 8. Kool-Aid McKinstry 9, and Johnny Newton 10. So there are 10. But we know that
your take is 5?
5 or fewer. So there will be 5 or fewer linemen taken before pick 25. So actually Newton was 25th.
5 or fewer defensive players of any kind.
5 or fewer defensive players of any kind taken before pick 25. So there are 9 currently on the consensus big board. But I've seen things where like Kool-Aid McKinstry's getting pushed down a decent amount. Nate Wiggins, people are concerned about like his, overall weight. I'm seeing, you could see Latu get pushed down because of medical concerns, a guy who was forced to medically retire for a season. I see Byron Murphy getting pushed down boards. I see Jared Verse getting pushed down boards. So I don't know. What do you think? And we've seen quarterbacks getting pushed upwards. If a guy like Michael Penix and Bo Nix both end up going early, we could see these defensive players get, just knocked down the board.
Well, I want to talk about is that there could be more wide receivers than quarterbacks. Like I have 6 wide receivers and 5 quarterbacks. That's 11 right there. And maybe 8 or 10.
8 or 9
offensive linemen.
That's 20. And then we're at that number. So that's why I think this is a hot take on this is my hottest take that could actually happen is there are 5 or fewer.
Right. This is a little hot, but this could actually happen. So I'm thinking the ones who are most likely would be like Mitchell, Arnold, Verse, Turner.
And DeJean.
Though he might make it to 25.
And maybe Latu.
Maybe Latu, if people are happy with his medicals.
Byron Murphy, maybe. Like, I love Byron Murphy. I think Byron Murphy.
But I don't always see him going,
Me either. I see him falling in a lot of
the top
mocks,
25.
So
and Nate Wiggins is really skinny.
So skinny, and I think people are going to be scared off by Forbes from last year, who they, Washington inexplicably took over Christian Gonzalez for no apparent reason. So who even knows? But I think people are going to be scared off because Forbes was a really skinny corner who struggled in his rookie year. And I think people are going to look at Nate Wiggins and be like, he's only 180 pounds. Like, he's going to get on, because we just saw Forbes get big boyed over and over and over again by AJ Brown. It's like, okay, like, what do you expect him to do? He's outweighed by 50 pounds. Like, there's nothing he can do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So what do you think about this? Hot, spicy, not spicy, spicy, but very spicy, but reasonable was what I was going for.
Right. This is spicy, but could actually happen.
But when I first said it, you were like, what on earth are you talking about? Right. Feels
so
low,
I had to talk through it. It's like, yeah, it could be just those 5.
Okay.
Or maybe even 4. If they go like crazy and like quarterback hungry teams push like Nix and Penix
up the board, and we see 9 or 10 offensive linemen, and then you got the 4 receivers. You're already at 20, and so there's only 4 defensive spots anyways at that point. So I don't know. That's just what I'm saying. But anyway, I think we have time for one more of yours if you want to hit me with it, and then we'll wrap things up here.
Okay, I kind of mentioned one that was, but this is a Packers one, and it's a kind of that the Packers will trade down 2 times in the first 2 days.
2 times in the first 2 days. So you're saying a team with 11 picks is like, get me some more. Give me some. Well, yes. I mean, they kind of did that. They did that last year.
It's exactly what they did last year.
Exactly what they did last year. They already had like 11, 10 picks, and they were like, give me some more. Let's get up to 13. Okay, twice on the first 2 days. So I'm guessing you're saying they're trading out of the first round from 25, and then they're trading down from 41. Is kind of what I'm seeing here.
To add like 3 more picks in the top, or maybe like to end up with 4 more picks in the top 100. They change those 2 into 4.
Let's go get some picks next year at that point.
Or actually, that's actually more likely. So this is another reason why they would trade back, because they want an extra pick in Green Bay.
Yeah, they're not going to get an extra first though, but they could get an extra second or so if they traded far enough back. I wouldn't want them to trade that far back from the first.
I gotta say, the only way to get an extra first is if they trade from 25 to like 80.
Which I would not want them to do, even though they're picking again at 41.
Right. So that's the other thing, though. If you trade back really far, then your first pick just becomes 41.
Which is not the end of the world, but
it's not that late.
Yeah.
If you're looking at
teams, and if you don't know this, most teams only have usually like 20 to 24, 25-ish, like first-round grades on players. Like, there are not 32 first-round graded players on most teams, like big boards, most teams draft boards. They got around 20 of them.
And I feel like they may look at the board and say, 25 to 41.
It's all the same.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's a pretty, unless one of their like favorite players is there, or they trade up for an offensive tackle, they'll trade back. So if like one of the offensive tackles falls to them.
So I think, just to grade this take, 2 trade downs in the first 2 days. I would say spicy. I would be surprised if it happens. 1 trade down, you have me. I think that's.
Well, that's why you got to do 2.
That's true. Yes,
one trade down is probably like the over under is probably 1.5.
2 or more. I think it's realistic, but I would be a little surprised to just for 2. It feels unlikely. If that was the betting line, I would take.
I think the thing that makes it a little bit more possible is the 2025 draft in Green Bay.
That's true. Just trying to get some more ammunition, get some more cheers from the home fans next year. I think it's very reasonable. Do you actually, I know this is your take and you're just pitching a hot take, but do you see this happening? Do you see 2 trade downs in the first 2 days?
In the drafts where I do it, I like the way they turn out most of the time.
I do like a lot of like the 3rd round offensive linemen.
I like a lot of those like 40 to 100 picks.
Yeah, that's true. And, the Packers already have a good amount of them, but it couldn't hurt to have a few more, especially for a team, that needs offensive line depth badly, that needs some secondary depth badly, that, I think use another running back. They need
there
depth
are potential starters in like 4 or 5 different positions in that range.
Yeah, I agree. So I would say, hot take, just because 2 feels like a lot, and it would be a lot to like bet on, but I think totally reasonable. So I think you completely nailed it with that one. But anyway, I think that does it for our Hot Take-a-Palooza, our final episode before the NFL draft. The next time you'll be hearing from us, the Packers will have, well, unless they trade out of the first round, but the next time you'll be hearing from us, the Packers will have made their first round selection. A lot of the, question marks around the draft will be answered, which is, I just love the draft so much. I'm so freaking excited.
Yeah. So if the Packers trade out of pick 25 to the second round, that first day episode will be pretty barren.
Or we might just wait till Friday.
We might just wait till after day 2.
I might not even be there. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. This has been our draft hot take session. Just firing off takes left and right with no consequences. If any of these hit, we're going to dunk on them. When they don't hit, we'll never hear about them again. I will clip the audio from the ones that we hit. Don't worry. They'll be posted on snippets on all those socials, and we'll look, I wouldn't say super smart, but we'll look kind of smart. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be doing an episode a week for the rest of the offseason. We'll be breaking down every single draft selection that the Packers make in detail for the rest of the offseason, so don't turn those knobs. Come follow us on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out whenever we have those new episodes. We're going to be tweeting a lot of stats and numbers and clips and retweeting clips that other content creators are making and articles that other content creators are writing about the Packers draft picks. This is the most fun time of the year for the NFL draft season because every pick you can talk yourself into being a good pick, unless you end up taking I guess there are some where you don't, but almost every pick you can talk yourself into being a great pick. And don't worry, we are here to help you with that. But no, we're going to try.
And there are some picks that you could talk yourself, or you have trouble talking yourself into a good pick. It's like, man, that was the stupidest pick ever, and then they work out.
Yeah, and just all cards on the table. When the Packers made the Rashawn Gary pick, I hated it, and I look like an idiot now, and I'm totally fine with that because Rashawn Gary's a great player.
If we're making confessions right now about our draft takes in 2020. As the Packers pick was coming up, I was so sure and so against the Packers picking Jordan Love that I was praying some other team would pick him before their turn came up because I wanted them to pick somebody else.
And that's the whole thing. So, with this being the last time we'll talk to you before the first round of the draft, just remember, folks, no one really knows anything. We often pretend to, not just us, but everyone often pretends to, but us especially. We do probably the most pretending that there is. But I watched Rashawn Gary draft, which would have been 2019, at a Buffalo Wild Wings with some friends, and I had to leave for a little while when they made the Rashawn Gary pick, and excuse myself and calm myself down because I did not think it was a good pick, and I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. So that's the thing. No matter how you feel about a pick on draft day, it's a lot of it is about the situation that they land in and the development and coaching that they get. It's a lot of nurture. It's as much nurture as it is nature. So, just keep that in mind. Take all these, draft analyses with a grain of salt. But we'll be doing breakdowns, giving you the pluses and minuses of all these players, like we said, for the rest of the offseason. Thank you so much for listening. Go subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. It's Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We even put episodes out on YouTube if you want to check them out there. Don't worry, it's just audio, not video. You don't got to look at our ugly mugs. But we can't wait to talk to you next week when we got some new Packers to root for. So until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.